Decoding Inner Fears and the Sarcastic Path to Transcendence. Part 1. When Fear Begins. The Root of All Limitation. When fear becomes the overbearing mother in your mind. Welcome, dear viewers, to a deep dive, or perhaps a superficial splash, into a topic so classic, it's become utterly cliché. Yet remains the most vibrant and ridiculously humorous material of our lives: fear. Fear is not some mysterious enemy. Nor is it a scarlet letter of weakness. It is the ultimate safety alarm system, pre-installed in your brain, activated by an overly anxious and slightly paranoid evolutionary mother. It is a signal, an invitation for us to initiate a deep, and potentially awkward, conversation with ourselves. 1. Primal fear and the humorous shift of destiny. Initially, fear served a purpose so straightforward and unphilosophical it's boring: fear of tigers. Fear of the abyss. Fear of starvation. These were physical fears, helping us learn to dread fire so we wouldn't get burned, and fear falling so we wouldn't break a bone. Yes, the brain did its job brilliantly in the Stone Age, saving humanity from extinction in a spectacular fashion. But then, a genuinely satirical thing happened. We conquered the tigers, or at least caged them in zoos, built bridges over the abysses, and invented refrigerators stocked with enough snacks to last a mild apocalypse. The real world became safer than ever. Yet, the tragic punchline is, we are more fearful than ever before. Now, the real tigers have been replaced by a horde of imaginary tigers in the mind. And they are far more ferocious. Our fears shifted from the physical to the psychological, from mere survival to social evaluation. We began to fear invisible shadows, the social and personal anxieties of the modern ego. The fear of flubbing up, a titchy flub phobia. This isn't just the fear of financial loss. It's the fear of others seeing your failure. The horror of having to post a failure status on social media. The fear of the cringe social phobia. The primal dread of being ratio D by the online community. The absolute nightmare of becoming the subject of a tasteless, yet viral, meme. The ultimate anxiety, love deficiency syndrome, the fear of eternal loneliness. The paralyzing worry that if you show your true self, you will be expelled from humanity's exclusive acceptance club. Fear has morphed into an imposter, an alarm signal that no longer warns of actual danger, but warns of the potential danger to our fragile, carefully constructed ego. 2. The hyper-protective mechanism. When the brain is the overbearing mother. In psychology, the invisible barriers that shackle us are products of the brain's defense mechanism. Our brain operates as a super-sensitive risk prevention and memory system. A 24/7 data analyst with a severe case of pessimism. When you experience an emotional hurt, whether minor, like being criticized by a teacher, or major, like being betrayed, the brain hastily and often excessively concludes, that hurt. Next time, absolutely do not repeat that behavior. And here lies the humorous and tragic blend. This mechanism was created to protect you from pain. But when it becomes overactive, it starts protecting you from life itself. The brain becomes an overbearing mother who is too concerned, locking you indoors with the invisible thread of anxiety and suspicion. The consequence? You shrink back, declining exciting opportunities, learning a new skill, changing careers, because they all lie outside the safe zone, approved by your mother brain. You choose boring safety over vibrant risk. Your lack of confidence is not a sign of incompetence, but proof that you are listening to the advice of an outdated security department. An alarm system running on bad reception. 3. The first step to inner freedom. Chatting with the imaginary tiger. The secret to breaking this limitation is not numbness or blind courage. That's impractical and unnecessary. It is learning to talk to the fear. Fear is not inherently bad. It is simply information, like a child who is crying. It is trying to tell you something about a need, a desire, or an old wound. Inner freedom begins when you can look directly at your imaginary tiger and conduct a deep, philosophical interview. Hey there, what exactly are you afraid of? What is the absolute worst that could genuinely happen? And is that worst-case scenario truly scarier than living a life of regret? A life perpetually shackled? Understanding that fear is just an outdated, slightly pathetic signal, a sardonic reminder of your own vulnerability, is the first step to reclaiming control of your mind. You acknowledge its presence, you listen to it as input data, but you refuse to let it drive the car of your life. That is the moment you begin to live genuinely, not according to the brain's outdated security script. That is the moment you realize the only limit that exists is the one you allow the overbearing mother in your mind to set. Part 2. Fear in the shadows, when the mind becomes a voluntary prison. Welcome back, dear viewers. If Part 1 identified the imaginary tigers, the social and psychological fears, now we delve into where they reside. The greatest irony of modern life is this: our biggest fears are not outside in the world, they are right inside our own minds. The very brain, a marvel of evolution, becomes an invisible prison, built and guarded entirely by ourselves. 1. The architect of paralysis, from thought to the prison cell. It all starts with a thought, a negative whisper in the head. I'm not good enough. I'm definitely going to fail. Or, if I speak my truth, everyone will hate me. The satire here is, we, the most intelligent creatures on the planet, accept these internal narratives as irrefutable facts. Our brain, designed to analyze reality, is easily fooled by its own lies. When this negative thought arises, the brain believes it's a survival threat. And so, we begin to build an invisible prison, bar by bar, created from anxiety and suspicion. And then, the most humorous part, we lock the door from the inside. 2. The chemical reaction of panic, the amygdala and the fear loop. To understand why we voluntarily imprison ourselves, we need to look at the underlying science of fear. Neuroscience research points to the amygdala in the brain as the main area responsible for processing and reacting to fear. It is the emergency alert system, programmed to react faster than reason. When a negative thought is repeated, even if imaginary, the amygdala is activated. When activated too often, it causes us to fall into a state of chronic anxiety, overreacting to minor stimuli, or worse, action paralysis. We don't dare to try. Don't dare to speak our minds. Don't dare to move, not because of lack of ability, but because the amygdala is screaming about an impending catastrophe, even though that catastrophe exists only in the script the mind wrote for itself. This very loop transforms fear into a habit, a constant background program. We become our own voluntary prisoners, afraid to step outside because we fear the light, fear judgment, fear that reality might be worse than the carefully cultivated anxiety. 3. The satirical escape, the light of awareness. But the greatest paradox of psychology is this: any fear is only strong when we run from it. They only survive in the darkness of denial and distraction. The more you try to ignore the fear of failure, the larger it grows. The more you try to appear fine, the deeper the anxiety roots itself in your soul. Here is the satirical truth: your jailer is your own unwillingness to look it in the eye. The light of awareness is the only antidote that can shatter that prison. When we dare to look directly at the fear, naming it clearly and calmly, the miracle happens. The fear doesn't die instantly, but it dissolves like mist in the sunlight. Reason, the prefrontal cortex, finally gets a chance to intervene in the amygdala's panic. We realize that fear is a story, not a fact. The barrier was locked from the inside. The moment you realize you hold the key, and the door was never locked from the outside, is the moment you are truly free. The authentic life lies outside the prison door built by your own fear. Part 3. The masks, when the ego tries to hide wounds with a satirical play. Distinguished audience, if Part 2 explored the mental prison of fear, we now delve into the costumes we wear while incarcerated, the social masks. The most profound irony of human interaction is this: we wear masks not to deceive the world, but to survive, to protect an ego that has been previously wounded. This is humanity's great satirical play, where everyone is trying to perform their role perfectly while their inner self is silently collapsing. 1. The ego's humorous necessity, living by the outdated script. Look at the common masks we wear. The perpetual joker, the class clown of life. They are likely afraid of being disliked, afraid of being seen as weak. Their smile is a shield, a false proclamation that, I'm fine, I'm approachable, never mind my real sadness. The cold perfectionist, the emotionally barricaded, they are likely afraid of deep hurt. The wall of coldness is a meticulously constructed defense, preventing anyone from touching the old wound. The constant helper, the service-driven self-worth, they are likely afraid of abandonment, fearing that if they stop being useful, they will lose value and be forgotten. Their worth is measured by their contribution, not by their inherent self. According to Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, these behaviors are products of the ego defense mechanisms. The ego constantly creates these psychological strategies to avoid feelings of pain, anxiety, or internal conflict. It helps us feel in control of life, even if it's a sweet illusion. It's the reassuring whisper. Just follow this script. People will like you, and you will be safe. 2. The price of perfection, disconnection and exhaustion. The cost of this play is exorbitant. The more we try to hide, the further we drift from our true self. The gap between the persona and the self widens. We have to spend a massive amount of mental energy maintaining this contradiction. We constantly check the script, ensuring the smile is in place, the tone is adequately cold, or the help is sufficiently generous. The result? The better we perform, the more exhausted we become, an exhaustion that doesn't come from work, but from self-dishonesty. Here is the psychological irony. We wear the mask to be connected and accepted. But the mask itself prevents authentic connection, because no one truly knows who we are. And we, too, are no longer sure what exactly we are hiding. 3. Letting go and the power of imperfection. The release lies in realizing a philosophical truth. What the world truly needs is not a perfect, carefully edited version, but a real human being, an imperfect self, yet one that dares to live fully. Dropping the mask is not easy. It is an act of courage, because it means you are willing to feel pain again. It means accepting the risk of rejection, judgment, or hurt, but it is also the first and only step to truly reconnecting with yourself. True strength is not found in the flawless mask, but in authentic vulnerability. Only when we dare to shed the defensive layer and say, "This is me," with all the mess, the anxiety, and the flaws, can we find unconditional acceptance from those who truly matter. And more importantly, from ourselves. That is when the satirical play ends, and the authentic life begins. Part 4. The social vortex, when the outside world subtly amplifies fear. Distinguished audience, after exploring the inner prison and personal masks, we step out into the world, where every individual fear is amplified 1,000-fold by a social psychological mechanism that is both subtle and intensely humorous. Modern society doesn't just create fear, it is a gigantic amplifier for fear. Fear has been upgraded, becoming more sophisticated and complex than ever. We don't just fear tigers, we fear falling behind in the career race. Fear not being beautiful enough to be loved by some algorithm. And the height of the satire is the fear that our life is not Instagrammable. 1. The catastrophe of fear of not enough. The entire system of media, social networks, and unrealistic success standards has created a psychological climate of the fear of not enough. Toxic success standards. Success is no longer personal satisfaction, but a non-stop growth chart. The house must be bigger, the title higher, the vacation further. Anyone who dares to stop is considered obsolete, a failure. Illusory comparison. Social media has turned comparison into a compulsive habit. We don't compare our entire chaotic backstage with another's entire life. We compare our messy backstage with their perfectly curated stage. The satire is that everyone is trying to sell an illusion, but we all buy it absolutely. And our self-esteem constantly wavers. Algorithmic validation. We have allowed algorithms to define our worth. If a photo doesn't get enough likes, if an opinion isn't shared enough, we feel rejected, scorned, as if the entire universe has voted against our existence. 2. The distorted social mirror and the power of self-reflection. Social psychology calls this phenomenon the social mirror. Humans tend to define their self-worth and identity through the gaze and judgment of others. If our social mirror is made of the material of competition, vanity, and edited images, we will forever see ourselves as lacking, small, and never good enough. We are trapped in a theater where the spotlight is always on others. making us believe we are just an anonymous usher. But here is where we execute the most profound philosophical and emotional act of liberation: learning to self-reflect with the light of our inner self. This means that instead of running outside to seek validation, we turn inward. We ask ourselves, does my worth truly change because a stranger on the internet didn't press the like button? 3. Ephemeral validation and the final laugh. The truth we must engrave upon our hearts is this: other people's validation is temporary, fleeting like cigarette smoke. It depends on their mood, the platform's algorithm, the society's transient trend. Today they praise you, tomorrow they will forget you. Conversely, self-validation is permanent, an unshakable foundation. When you decide, I do this because I believe in it, because it makes me feel whole, the noise of the outside world, the judgment of the crowd, suddenly becomes meaningless. That is your final and most humorous laugh. You do not need anyone's permission to live your life fully. You are enough. You are valuable. And this truth requires no likes or shares to be proven. Be the only person you have to convince of your worth, and you will find eternal freedom. Part 5. When the past still holds our hand, the scar of trauma and the fear of recurrence. Distinguished audience, if the previous 4 parts explored fears stemming from the self and society, now, we return to where it all began, the past. The tragic comedy of the human psyche is this: so many fears controlling our present actions do not come from the present at all. They are lingering echoes, the relentless reverberations of events that happened long ago, but which still hold our hand tightly. 1. Fear as a vicious loop, invisible trauma. We may be self-sufficient adults, but our minds hold the wounds of a child. Fear of speaking up, a stinging critique from a teacher or relative in childhood can morph into a prolonged fear, making us forever afraid to voice an opinion, afraid to be the center of attention. Fear of love, a single betrayal, a deep hurt in love, can cause us to build a lonely fortress. We choose to avoid intimacy to protect the heart, rather than accepting the risk of being loved again. Fear of trying again, a painful failure in the past can become a curse, making us terrified of reattempting anything new, simply for fear of facing the same feeling of disappointment. The irony is that we are reacting to a ghost. We are living as if the real tiger is still standing right behind us, even though it died decades ago. 2. Where the subconscious stores pain, the mind's black box. According to psychological therapy and studies of the unconscious, every unprocessed and unhealed traumatic memory lies dormant in the subconscious mind, the mind's black box. This subconscious mind does not differentiate between past and present. When you face a situation slightly similar to the old trauma, e.g. a mild disagreement, the subconscious immediately triggers the primal fear response, controlling your behavior without you even realizing it. This is why sometimes you don't understand why you are afraid. You simply feel extreme dread. You find yourself shrinking back, getting angry without cause, or running away from a good opportunity for no logical reason. That is the outdated defense mechanism speaking, an obsolete software program trying to run on a new operating system. 3. The key to forgiveness, releasing trapped energy. The path to breaking this tragicomic loop lies in identification and forgiveness. Identify. The first step is to look straight at the fear and query its source. Is this fearful feeling mine in the present? Or is it mine at age 7, when I was laughed at? Forgive the person who caused the trauma. Forgiveness here is not about forgetting or condoning their action. Forgiveness is a philosophical and selfish act, freeing yourself from the burden of hatred and resentment. By forgiving, you withdraw the power that the past event holds over your current mood and actions. Forgive yourself, most importantly. Forgive yourself for allowing the fear to linger for too long, for punishing yourself with anxiety, and for living restrictively for years. Say to your inner child, that happened, and now, you are safe. Because forgiveness is not the act of forgetting an event, it is the act of releasing the emotional energy trapped in the heart. When that energy is freed, it no longer controls your behavior. The past can finally stay where it belongs, behind you, not driving your life. That is when you reclaim emotional self-sovereignty completely. Part 6. The mechanism of courage, action as the antidote to fear. Distinguished audience, having identified the psychological prison, the social mask, and the ghosts of the past, we arrive at the most crucial question: how to escape. Many of us live with a psychological illusion. We must be fearless. Must feel completely confident before we dare to act. The truth is a satirical and scientific reversal. Only by acting does the fear dissipate. 1. Courage is not the absence of fear. Let's debunk the myth of blind heroism. Courage is not the state of fearlessness of a superhero. It is an act of will and choice. Courage is walking forward even when your heart is pounding, even when your voice is trembling, and even when the overbearing mother in your brain is screaming alarms. Fear is a passive reflex. Courage is an active response. We cannot control feeling afraid, but we can absolutely control our actions. This is the most important philosophical separation, separating emotion from action. 2. Breaking the fear loop, the chemical reaction of triumph. Neuroscience has proven a powerful biological mechanism behind courageous action. When we take an action, however small, to confront a fear, e.g., sending the job application email, starting a conversation, the brain responds by releasing dopamine, the neurotransmitter that creates excitement, motivation, and reinforces positive belief, transforming fear into experience. Every time you act, you are creating a new emotional experience for the brain. This experience is living proof, completely refuting the fear's old negative warnings. The more successful experiences you have, even small ones, the weaker the old fear becomes. The amygdala, the seat of fear, is gradually controlled by the prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational decision-making. The small deeds, big wins principle. Fear exists in abstraction. The best way to destroy it is to bring it down to the concrete. Start with micro jumps. Say what you think, even if only with a slightly hesitant question in a meeting. Try a new thing, even if it's only a small part of a project. Accept failure not as an ending, but as an expensive, pre-packaged lesson. 3. The power of ignition and the laugh of liberation. The satire is that we always seek safety and stability. Yet no courage is born from safety. Courage is always forged in instability, in the lack of certainty. Like starting an old car, the hardest part is turning the key. After that, the car runs itself. Similarly, procrastination and fear are strongest at the starting point. Every time we overcome a small fear, we are building a solid brick for our self-trust. We are not just changing behavior, we are rewriting the psychological script and reinstalling the brain's operating system. This is the moment we break into a laugh of liberation. Fear tried to trick us into thinking we had to stop. But it turns out, we had the key to escape that prison all along. Action is the key. Start now. Part 7. Cultivating positive thinking, when the mind becomes an ally and a master screenwriter. Distinguished audience, having understood the mechanism of courageous action, we must delve into humanity's most powerful tool, the mind. We will train it so it is no longer a prison, but an ally, a master screenwriter rewriting the life script. The most important thing to clarify immediately: positive thinking does not mean denying the negative. That is a naive and dangerous fallacy. If you just got fired, saying, "I feel absolutely ecstatic," is not positive, it's a humorous denial of reality. 1. The philosophical power of language. Language shapes reality. True positive thinking is the ability to see the light even when you are standing in the middle of the darkness. It is a linguistic and psychological skill. Our brain is extremely obedient. When we make a statement, even to ourselves, the brain immediately activates evidence-seeking mode to prove that statement is true. When we say, "I can't do this," "I am a failure," the brain scours the memory bank, looking for every piece of evidence of times you were wrong, and whispers, "Yes, you are right, don't waste any more time." But when we change the language, "This is difficult, but I am learning how to do it. I will find a solution," the brain shifts into problem-solving mode and paves the way for action. It starts seeking learning experiences, new paths, potential solutions. This is the powerful and satirical truth. The words you choose don't just describe your reality, they shape your reality. You are the primary screenwriter of your life, and every word you speak is a command sent to your inner universe. 2. Cognitive reframing, the art of liberation. Psychologists advise us to practice the technique of reframing. This is the art of changing the lens through which you view an event, not changing the event itself. Here are some satirical examples of how we can reframe personal tragedies into philosophical opportunities. Default negative structure, the prison; intentional positive structure, the ally. I failed miserably. I just completed an expensive lesson and found one way that definitely won't work. I was rejected, abandoned by others. I was just filtered out of a relationship that wasn't meant for me. Space has been cleared for something better. I'm terrible because I'm feeling anxious. I am fully experiencing human emotions. My brain is trying to protect me, and I will be gentle with it. By reframing, we are no longer passive victims of events. We become active analysts of life experience. 3. Positive thinking and the power of calm. The true power of positive thinking is not to make fear disappear, but to make you calm and clear-headed enough to face it. Fear will still knock on the door, but thanks to a trained mind, you won't panic and open it immediately. You will be calm enough to ask, "Who is it? Is that my imaginary tiger? What do you want?" Positive thinking is a survival skill. It is the choice not to let fear write the next chapter of your story. It allows you to act with courage, not because you are unafraid, but because you have learned how to redirect your language and screenplay your life in a different, liberating way. That is the peak of emotional self-sovereignty. Part 8. The healing journey, when we learn to return inward with tragic gratitude. Distinguished audience, after identifying fear, removing the masks, and training the mind, we arrive at the final, and most beautiful, stage, the healing journey. The core thing to understand: healing is not the act of careless forgetting, it is the act of accepting in order to let go. It is a philosophical and emotional choice, where we change our relationship with the past. 1. Healing. Transforming tragedy into lesson. Healing is not about erasing the scars. It is the process of transforming those scars into medals of honor for the soul's resilience. This is the moment we look back at the past not with resentment, anger, or regret, but with a tragic gratitude. Gratitude not for the hurt that happened, but for what that hurt taught us. Gratitude that all the things that once scared us, once pushed us to the brink, were actually teaching us the single, most important lesson: to love ourselves more. Failures, betrayals, rejections, they are all the most rigorous teachers. They forced you to rebuild the foundation of self-esteem from within, no longer dependent on the validation of the outside world. 2. The science of peace. Rewiring neural connections. This journey inward is not just a romantic concept, it has a solid scientific basis. Modern therapies like mindfulness, meditation, journaling, emotional writing, or gratitude therapy are all powerful tools that help the brain rewire positive neural connections. When we practice mindfulness, we are strengthening the activity of the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for reason and calm, and simultaneously reducing the overactivity of the amygdala, the fear center. In other words, we are actively soothing the overbearing mother in the brain. Gratitude journaling is not a social game, it's an emotional therapy exercise. It forces the brain to seek out the good, instead of focusing only on the bad. This is how we, day by day, minute by minute, redirect the mind's attention from fear to sufficiency. 3. Healing is not a finish line of patience. The greatest truth of healing is, it is not a destination, it is the way we walk. There is no grand, aha, moment where fear suddenly disappears forever. It is the tedious and loving persistence with oneself. Every day, just 10 minutes of listening to the breath. That is 10 minutes you choose presence over anxiety. Every day, just 10 minutes of writing down what you are grateful for. That is 10 minutes you choose sufficiency over lack. Healing is a guerrilla war, where you win day by day, little by little, with gentleness and patience. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be consistent in being kind to yourself. The soul will slowly return to peace. Not because the world stops being noisy, but because you have learned how to soothe the noise within. Walk gently, patiently, and lovingly on this journey. That is eternal liberation. Part 9. Rebirth from fear. Living truly confident and free. We have reached the final stage of the psychological journey. And this is where all struggle finds meaning: rebirth. The necessary realization is this: fear never truly disappears, it is only transformed. Like energy, it is neither created nor destroyed, but changes from one state to another. When we stop running, stop building prisons, and stop wearing masks, fear becomes the purest fuel for our growth and development. 1. Fear transformed. The alchemy of the soul. This is when we witness the alchemy of the soul, the process of turning fear into strength, turning wounds into wisdom. Fear was once our greatest burden, but when accepted and confronted, it becomes our greatest teacher. Every person who overcomes fear will not just be a better version, but a completely new self, built upon a foundation of profound experience. The person who feared loneliness, when they overcome it, they not only know how to live alone but also become someone who knows how to love genuinely and without control. They love not out of a need to fill a void, but out of their own wholeness. The person who feared failure, when they dare to get up, they become an inspiration to others, living proof that stumbling is data, not destiny. They are the ones capable of leading with authenticity, because they know what it feels like to be at the bottom. The person who feared being hurt, when they heal, they become a safe and warm sanctuary for other souls. Their empathy is not theory, but understanding forged in their own pain. This is rebirth, not changing completely into a stranger, but returning to your most intact, most authentic self, but with a new perspective and strength. 2. The supreme power of gratitude and true freedom. When we reach this state, we don't just accept fear, we are grateful for fear. This gratitude is not a naive romanticization. It is a philosophical acknowledgement that every obstacle served a higher purpose, teaching us resilience and self-love. When we are grateful for fear, we have truly overcome it, because we have withdrawn its power to define us. When we understand that every experience has meaning, we no longer fear living. We no longer avoid difficult decisions, because we understand that whether the result is success or failure, it is all precious raw material for our growth. And that is true freedom, not freedom from all problems, but freedom from within. This is the freedom. Freedom to love without fear of loss. Freedom to commit without fear of stumbling. Freedom to live a life not controlled by fear, those shadows and negative whispers, but led by the steady light of belief in oneself. Let fear be your final teacher, the one that guides you to the fullest confidence and freedom. Your journey of struggle is over. And now, your greatest life begins. Conclusion. The light from fear and the invitation to come home. Distinguished audience, after a long journey through the psychological maze of fear, from the childhood, imaginary tigers, the inner prison, the social masks, to the ghosts of the past, we have reached a conclusion that is both philosophical and liberating. Ponder this quote, for it holds the entire truth about courage. Fear is the dark side of the soul. But if you know how to shine a light on it, it turns into a guiding lamp. This is not a meaningless romantic metaphor, but a scientifically proven psychological truth. We have seen that fear cannot be destroyed, but it can be transformed. Fear, when conquered and acknowledged, becomes the most honest source of information about what we truly desire, about the boundaries we need to protect, and about the potential we are trying to avoid. The satire of the dark door. The greatest satire of life is this: we spend our entire lives running from fear, building sturdy defensive structures, but it turns out, the door to freedom lies right inside that room of fear. Fear was once the assumed enemy, but when you turn back, face it, and embrace it, it becomes the most loyal guide. It directs you to the places where you need to grow. If you fear failure, it is the lamp guiding you to creativity and perseverance. If you fear loneliness, it is the lamp guiding you to wholeness and self-love. If you fear speaking up, it is the lamp guiding you to your power and authenticity. The invitation to return to the intact self. This journey of healing and rebirth is yours alone. There is no universal formula, no shortcut for inner development. My final invitation to you, dear viewers, is this: slow down, listen, and embrace your fear. Stop fighting what has already happened. Stop trying to be a non-existent perfect version. Let stillness and compassion lead you home. Because, sometimes, Fear is the only thing left. The only thing true enough to take your hand and lead you back to your most intact self, the free and powerful person you have always been. Before the world and those fake fears tried to define you. Live a courageous life. A life led by truth. Not controlled by fear. That is eternal liberation. If this video touched you, please leave a comment sharing your thoughts below. Let's create a community of healing and inner growth together. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next installments on this wonderful journey. Thank you for listening. I wish you a peaceful and steady day. See you next time.